Hi, guys. We're going to start here in about 15 minutes. Jason Brown is here with me. So, welcome. And remember that if you are live tweeting today, to use the hashtag DFWSEM and make sure to use the chat feature. Hi, y'all. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes to wait for everybody else to trickle in. We're so glad that you could join us tonight, and I know you're going to learn a lot of great stuff from Jason. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for attending this month's DFW SEM meeting. We are now in our 17th year of search engine marketing, and that's made possible due to a lot of great people. Our treasurer, Chris O'Connor, secretary, Jade Myers, she's the one that's fixing all the website bugs and making sure that everything's up to date. Our VP of hospitality, Amal Haddad, our VP of membership, Bart Peters, our sponsorship VP, Jordan Pearson, and our board member at large, Tim Shane. That being said, we still need some volunteers. If you are great at social media or emails, or if you are interested in helping out with data search, email us at info@dfwsem.org. We need all the extra hands that we can get. Also, speaker pitches are still open. If you're looking to speak at data search, you have not missed your opportunity. Starting on May 1st is our deadline. So if you want to submit, go to stateofsearch.org/speaker pitches. And then, of course, tickets are still available for State of Search, so make sure that you get your tickets now. We've got both virtual and in-person tickets, so book that now. Members, we've got a couple of different memberships. I think that most of y'all are members. If you're not and you want to, or if you're interested in a virtual membership, email us at membership@dfwsem.org. A virtual membership allows you to attend all virtual events plus one in person. And then you also get access to this video after the fact, and that way you can replay all the knowledge. I also wanted to give a big shout out to all of our current members. A lot of y'all have been here throughout the years, and we really appreciate your support. These events wouldn't be possible without your memberships, so thank you very much. And one of the perks of DFW SEM is also networking. I saw Jackie noted in the comments that, if you want to network, feel free to put your LinkedIn information out there, or just do a simple search. So find me. I'm happy to connect with you. Also, if you're looking to hire, the DFW SEM job board is now live after a couple of years. So email info@dfwsem.org and let us help you find some good people. Our next meeting, we've got Mark Bautista, and he's going to talk about the keyword match type updates. So in July, broad modified match will officially not be any longer, and he's going to tell you how you can still prepare and test even with Google's reliance on AI and how they're leaning more and more and being less and less transparent. And then if you want to fill out our meeting survey at the end, we've got dfwsem.org/virtual meeting survey. But without any further ado, I will hand it over to Jason Brown. I am personally a big fan of Jason Brown and his work on spam fighting, and his tips and tricks have helped me and my clients rank much higher, thanks to all the spam crackdowns that we've been able to do because of him. So with that, Jason, I will hand it over to you.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. So let me just start getting this all set up. So hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight. We're definitely going to be talking GMB spam fighting. And I know a lot of you are like, I don't like spam, but oh my gosh, spam is on the menu. I love spam. I think it's one of the topics I get the most passionate about, and I will continue to speak about it. I've got my Twitter handle. If you ever have any questions, it's Kaiser Holiday. Basically, anywhere you look online for Kaiser Holiday, you will find me. So without further ado, yes, my name is Jason Brown. I'm a Google My Business Platinum product expert. What does that mean? It just means that I spend way too much time on the Google My Business community forums, answering people's questions. But I'm also a mentor on there as well. So anybody that's trying to learn how to rise up in the ranks, I try and help mentor them so that they're giving quality answers to people that are coming with some pretty nuanced or problems that can't really truly be fixed with just general support. Again, I'm the spam fighter at Review Fraud, so that's what I do for 4 years now. I've just been battling spam and beating up on Google. I'm also a local U faculty member and appeared on the Today Show 2.5 times, depending on how you count it. The halftime was because it was an interview I did for NBC DC, and they just reran it on the Today Show without my knowledge. So I found out after the fact, but anyway. So what is GMB spam? Well, Google categorizes business listings into 2 different things. So there's the eligible businesses and ineligible. So because the world has changed a lot, Google's had to come up with new eligibility, categories. So I know one of the biggest complaints we always get is people are really upset with the QB kiosks. But as it works, a kiosk is the same as an ATM, same as a red box. A consumer can actually go to that machine, put in their credit card, have an actual personal interaction with that kiosk. And so that is actually an eligible business. Google's had to make some updates as to what are ineligible businesses. So we're actually seeing more and more categories and types of businesses that will no longer qualify for a Google My Business listing. So they actually came out and said lead gen is not available for a Google My Business listing, which we still see a lot of lead gen listings, but because of the Wall Street Journal article, this is why Google had to come in and update this, because people are still trying to create, listings that they can just sell the leads, and they're not actual businesses. And so when a consumer is calling, they're going to a call center, and then they're being dispatched to, that other business. Google did just come out, a month ago to finally clarify that you are not allowed to have an SAB at a co-working space. For people who don't know, an SAB is when you clear your address and you do not show your address online. So if you're going to do an SAB where, you want to do it at your house and hide the address, and then your listing would be in compliance. If you have signage at your home address and you serve customers at your location, then you would not need to hide your address and you would be totally fine. But we get asked the question all the time, can I use a co-working space? That would be a Regus, a WeWork, anywhere where you're basically just renting a desk, and then you go and you hide your address. Now, when Google comes and they find those things, they do take swift action and do remove them. There's a lot of people that are still using co-working spaces that haven't been dinged, but I got a funny feeling they're going to get dinged pretty quick. So an eligible listing has got to be staffed during the stated hours. You have to have visible signage. Your GMB name needs to match your signage and your website. So we get a lot of confusion on what is eligible and ineligible. So like a perfect example, this is Target. So we all know Target. We know Target's got signage. We know you go to the website, it all reads Target. You're not gonna come across a Target listing that's gonna be Target, your local, clothing store, retail chain, right? They're all gonna be branded the exact same way. And so this would be a pretty clear indication of what Google's looking for. And so this would be the same if you have an office. So if you're listing your name as the law offices of Stephen Frank, well, then your website's going to read the law offices of Stephen Frank. You're going to have signage that's going to say the law offices of Stephen Frank. Now, if your GMB is not matching that, then that is a quality guideline infraction, and it could lead to a suspension. So again, ineligible, here's a perfect example. So this is what the Wall Street Journal article talked about, was lead gen listing. So this listing was called Accident Injury Attorney Duncan Group. And so, we started seeing a lot of these things that were popping up. These were all lead gen. So this is like the beginning stages of what a lead gen listing would look like. They would get it up on maps, and then they would start coming in and start adding the information. So they would add a telephone number, they would add the hours, they would add a website. Usually when they got the listing verified and they went to go to add a website, it would just be that free Google My Business website, which kind of helped exacerbate the lead gen that was happening, because now people didn't have to go and create a website and build it out. They would just let Google do it for them for free, and easy peasy. You've got a listing that's ranking, and then you just start selling those leads. Another example of an eligible listing. This was actually somebody that actually tried to claim that their listing was legit. And I said, okay, well, let me see your signage. And so as you can see, it's just a sheet of paper. They put it in a protective sleeve and they taped it to the door. You can actually see the Scotch tape on the door. And so we're like, no, this does not count as permanent signage. And what I tell people is, if I were to ask my kids for a permanent marker and if they brought me a washable Crayola marker, then something would be wrong, and I'd have to explain to them, what a permanent marker is. And so most people, when you ask them for a permanent marker, they're going to bring you that permanent marker. This is another example of somebody tried to use this as signage, and basically they just got a sign and they used C clamps and clamped it to their garage, to their gate. But when they sent in a couple different photos to Google, they had moved their sign a couple different times. Google saw that, and so they were not going to reinstate this listing, and because they realized that the signage was too easy to move. So it has to be something that's not going to easily just come off and move around. This isn't like, pin the tail on the donkey. That signage really, truly has to stay in place. More examples of, ineligible listings. So, here's a business that is, doing the keyword stuffing. So they go and, their real name should be Life Care Solutions. But what they do is they try to make sure that they get every single geo area that they're in. And so when they're in Houston, they put Houston. They also put the services that they do. So this is a business that is just asking Google to just come in and do what we call an account level suspension, where they just suspend all of the listings. And then this company is going to have to pretty much start all over from scratch if they can't figure out how to get out of an account level suspension, which is what I really love. They also have multiple SABs, which is also an infraction. And the policy with Google is you have to have a 2-hour distance in between locations. So they don't want you creating a GMB listing, a couple of different blocks away as you're trying to, maximize your footprint. So Google suspension, how can they be done? Well, they can easily be done through, a user initiated, which is, just clicking on, suggested edit, where you can actually change the name if you wanted to, or you can just do remove this place. I do a lot of removing places. I usually don't tend to mess too much with name stuffers because, they usually just put it back. And I just find it's a lot easier to actually just get the listing removed than to play games and wait for them to put their names back. But if you can get a listing suspended, Google's not going to reinstate it with the keyword stuffing. So that helps, prevent things. And another really great, nice thing about keyword stuffed or suspended listings is you're going to be down for at least a day. And if you don't have all of your ducks in a row to apply for reinstatement, it's going to take that much longer to get reinstated. Once a business listing does get reinstated, it takes a full 72 hours for that business listing to start ranking again and to get to be seen online. So a suspension, you're looking at a minimum of 4 days to be offline if you have your documentation in a row. If you don't, it's taking you a while to get all of your documents that Google's going to want, and it's a pretty comprehensive list. And depending on the market, some markets it's going to take a lot longer. So if you're in garage door, it's taking a lot longer right now. If you're in rehab, and then in cannabis space, there's a couple of states where you can have cannabis listings, but it takes a lot longer because they want to do like a more thorough integrity check. So that's the risk that people run with trying to abuse the system with Google. And I tell people it's like speeding. We know we're not supposed to speed. We know not everybody gets a ticket, but when you get pulled over and get a ticket, you can't sit there and say to the cop, "Why'd you pull me over? All these other people are speeding." The cop's like, "Hey, I just happened to zero in on you. It was your turn to get that ticket." And I said, account level suspension. So this company, I mean, if Google's going to eventually catch up to them, and they're going to eventually just wipe them out. So you can because Google does perform integrity checks, so they will look at an individual listing, or they will look at the account as a whole. So if you get a single listing suspension, then you just have to apply for reinstatement on the listing. When you get an account level suspension, and this is when Google starts to see that you have more listings in your account that are not in good standing, that's where they're just going to wipe everything out. Account level suspensions are not easy to get fixed. When you apply for reinstatement on an account level suspension, if you haven't fixed the root cause, Google says, "Sorry, Charlie, you're out of luck. You need to create a brand new listing and start all over from scratch." So you lose your history, you lose your reviews, you lose your photos, you lose your posts. Anything that you've done with that GMB listing is completely gone, and you have to start all over from scratch. It is a really big pain in the butt to actually go through. So Google's actually, because of a new law that was passed, I think with the EU, they made it so that Google now has to start telling people when you have a denial of service. So they are now sending out. That's why we are now you're seeing emails where they're saying that your listing has been suspended. They're now sending out emails where reviews are being removed. This is an account level suspension. So this is somebody that reached out to me, and Google basically just said, "Look, you've been doing some things that are outside our guidelines." And so each and every single business that this account was associated with got completely wiped. And so now they got to go through the painstaking process of applying for reinstatement. Same day that this came in, another friend of mine had reached out to me. He got hit as well with an account level suspension. And so he lost all 50 of his clients' listings, all got suspended, and he's had to go through this painstaking process of applying for reinstatement one by one on each location because they were all different. They were not a chain, and they were all different business names. And then this is an email that you get when you try to apply for reinstatement on an account level suspension. And Google says your listing has activity from a previous manager owner's account that was suspended for violating guidelines. And so this terminology is actually changed. And so now when they send these things out, they actually tell you that you have to start all over from scratch because of the account level suspension. So you actually have to get rid of that account. And then now what we're starting to see, and this has just started happening now if you have an account where you've had, some suspicious activity in the past, or you were trying to play fast and loose and you were creating a bunch of listings that you weren't supposed to, and Google removed them all and they're all suspended. And if you go and you apply for reinstatement when your account is in that gray area with Google, they actually start telling you that they're not going to be able to help you apply for reinstatement, and that you now need to go in and start deleting your other locations in order to get this listing if you want to get this listing reinstated. But basically, it's they put the kibosh on you. You're not getting this listing reinstated, and you're going to have to just let it go. You also can't transfer reviews from a suspended listing to a legitimate listing because that listing was never in Google's good graces, and so it's just like it just never existed. We were also seeing a lot of GMB suspension, when people were editing their core data. So your core data is going to be your name, your address, telephone number, website. So we're actually seeing people that were getting suspended when they would go and add UTM trackers to their GMB, to the website URL, which we thought was just kind of ridiculous. We did, start getting on Google, and I think they've fixed some of the issues that they were having. But yeah, if you actually went in and you updated your hours, because you were a seasonality business, or you got hit with bad weather and you needed to close for a day, or you were a plumber in Dallas, and you needed to work longer because of the storms, Google was suspending telephone numbers. If you were going to use, add a tracking number as your main business number, so that way you can actually start, getting your statistics, because GMB data is so poor that you actually don't get credit for all of the clicks on the website or of the calls, because when you're getting the click to call data, it's only people that are coming from mobile, so you're missing out on anybody that's actually calling your business phone directly off of a desktop. Another reason to get, Google My Business Suspicion is because people are improperly filling out addresses. And so people tend to like to put this suite number in their address line 1. And actually what you need to do is you need to click add line and put your suite numbers and buildings in that second box. It actually can block reinstatements. There was a case I was working on where this account was just a complete mess. They had improper names. They had their suite numbers on address line 1. They had descriptions that looked a bit spammy in nature, but that's one of the things that I always go and check, is just make sure that your suite numbers and buildings are on the correct line. Don't go and do that right now. If you were to go in and edit your business address right now, it would potentially cause a suspension, especially if you have not cleared your address. So it's a private residence and you don't have signage, you need to clear it. If you go and you actually clear your address right now, it will cause one of two things. One, Google may require that it needs to be re-verified, or they'll go ahead and suspend it. Very rarely, and I mean very rarely, are we actually seeing it where they're taking no action at all and just allowing people to clear the address. We always ask, when people get suspended, was it Jason Brown or was it the Google update? I do a lot of spam fighting for my clients. I also hunt spam for sport. So there's a lot of times where I'll just go after some networks just because, that's just kind of what I like to do, just because of the harm that it brings to consumers. So I want to make sure that, nobody in my general area is going to be taken advantage of by some unscrupulous business that's just looking to rip them off. So this is typically what my inbox looks like on any given morning. I don't know why Google starts sending out a lot of my published updates like between 7 and 2 a.m. So I just get all these, published edits. But this is actually when I was actually working on an early morning project, which is why you see the top two, the number 2 and number 3 say thanks for, because I was actually actively spam fighting. But because of the fact that I get a lot of published edits, I usually don't get as many of the not applied, but I still get a handful of the not applied. But I always have something else that I can use behind it. So this is my current score right now. I have 69,171 points. Think about edits are worth 5 points, and so Google's actually credited me currently with 13,647 edits. So I do a lot more edits than I do reviews or ratings or photos, but predominantly that's just what I do the most of. It's just kind of come in and play whack-a-mole, or just beat up on fake listings. One of the ways that I love to hunt spam, and this is my favorite tool, this is the granddaddy of all of the tools that I use, and this is Places Scouts. So Places Scouts is really great because you can actually put in all of your keywords that you want to track and rank for. So let's say you are a roofer in Los Angeles. So you put all your roofing terms, roofer, roofing repair, roofing company, roofing contractor, and then you can put your geo modifiers in, with Los Angeles. you put your address in there, and then when you run the report, it lets you know how you are ranking close to your address, and you'll tend to notice if you're doing really well in your rankings. The farther out you go, the worse it gets, because it's just how Google usually, does rankings based off of proximity, how close your business is to that searcher. So this is a client that I just brought on, that I just took on the other month. And so he wanted to know how effective his SEO, how effective spam fighting could be. So when he first came in, he had a few greens. Green is going to be 1 to 3. Yellows is going to be 4 to 7. And then red is going to be 8 to not ranking. And so basically all I had to do was just go in and get rid of 2 listings. One was keyword stuffing. So I just I got the keywords removed from it. And the other was a listing that didn't qualify at all. And so you can see just getting those 2 listings removed had the biggest impact on their business. And so when I ended up talking with the marketing company that was handling that client, they said all of a sudden they just noticed that started getting an influx of calls. And so this is basically, think about all those greens as money and potential phone calls. So that's why I like Places Scouts, because Places Scouts, you can actually show the proof of what you've done, and there's no way you're going to refute that. Also, you can start seeing if you're decreasing, you're getting a lot more yellows and reds, then that's an area that you need to go mark on. So as soon as you click on any of those little balloons, say I clicked on the 4 right down there in the corner, it would show me who's ranking in position 1, 2, and 3. And then I would look to see if those were listings that were keyword stuffing, or if I could get them removed to help that client rank in that area. So again, like I said, what I like to look at is I like to look for the keyword stuffers. So, this number 2 listing right here would be CPR cell phone repair, Chicago West. Well, I know that that's not in guidelines. There's also another one down below, another CPR cell phone repair, Chicago _West. So those would be the 2 listings that I would go after, right away. And there's another CPR cell phone repair. So I'd actually report all of those together at Google, and wait for Google to come in and do an account level suspension and just wipe those guys out, and then watch my client, with the cell phone repair, actually shoot up, because now there's 3 vacancies in their market that they can rank for. I also do a lot of address searches, and this one's really good. So all you have to do is just put in the address that you're searching near and put in the keyword. So you can substitute the law right here for garage door, for plumber, for HVAC, and then that is how you're going to be able to see all of the businesses that are ranking in that close proximity. And then as you start taking them out, or you start finding a bunch of businesses all sharing the same address, then you can just build your case file and go ahead and report all those listings. And then Google will come in and start taking them all out, or maybe just taking out the ones that are no longer there any longer. So like I said, I like to do, address searches. So this was somebody that decided they wanted to spam me last night. And as they said, they're going to offer me a video service for $97. And then they said, and I asked in return a 50% discount for a quick testimonial. Well, you can't offer a discount for a testimonial. That violates the FTC's guidelines. And depending on the platform that they wanted that testimonial on, it would also violate those terms of service. So anyway, I looked at the company name, and I was kind of upset that the guy spammed me. So I decided I was going to, go and look him up. So lo and behold, I do an address search. And when I did the address search, Google showed me 3 businesses and a map pack for that address. I clicked on it to expand. There was a total of 46 businesses that were all at this address. As you can see, 4 of them right now are listed as software company. There were more software companies. There were online businesses as well, selling, pharmaceuticals, herbal remedies, T-shirts. And so I ended up doing the suggested edit. I got 6 of them removed between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m., but I already uploaded the entire spreadsheet to Google so that Google could look at all the remaining 40 that were left. But I did report all 46 directly to Google. So we'll let Google come in and do what they need to do to knock these guys out. You can also do some near me searches. So this was lawyer near and then Meeting Street, St. Charles, Charleston, South Carolina. And then it starts showing me all the different law firms that are showing up in that area. And as I'm looking at the map, say I was working for, for a lawyer, I can start looking for which lawyers, I needed to start looking at that were, ranking in that area. I do a lot of business lookup searches because, just because you think you found a fraudulent listing doesn't always mean that it's a fraudulent listing. So you want to look to see if they are registered with their Secretary of State. In Texas, you can definitely do, Texas business entity search, and you can start looking them up. The only problem with Texas is you can't get access to the DBAs, doing business as, or a fictitious business name. So they may have a state registration, or they may not have done the Secretary of State. They may have just done a DBA, and it's a lot more difficult to find that. But as you start looking into the businesses, check and see if they're registered with the BBB or if they're accredited with the BBB. If they're accredited with the BBB, then chances are Google will not remove an accredited listing with the BBB because they use that accreditation as a trusted source. And we're also seeing that Google has not been taking out private residences where people are actually not hiding their addresses because of that BBB accreditation. So things to keep in mind. Anything you can do to put your business out there in various sites, especially with the BBB. The more you do your branding and your marketing, the more Google's going to actually trust your business, and it will make it harder for most businesses to be taken down. However, if you are using a private residence and you are keyword stuffing, or you're using a private residence and you have other issues with your Google My Business listing, we say it's a two-part approach. All Google has to see is two things wrong with your listing, and they will go ahead and suspend it. I also like to look at a lot of GMB listings. So I'll actually look at some of the other businesses that are in the area. Or I'm sorry, let's say we're looking at like a Regis or an office building. So I'll actually start looking at some other businesses and see what kind of photos they have. Did they put photos up there to show that there's no doors or signage on doors? I will definitely use that as part of my case to get some fraudulent or questionable listings reported and removed with Google. But when it comes to like the some listings, I won't even bother doing a suggested edit, just because suggested edits have been known to backfire and cause issues, and I'll get into that in a little bit as well. I'll also like to do a lot of all in title. Now this is really great for a lot of specialty markets. So here's a prime example. I just did all in title handyman, and as I'm looking, I start seeing all the businesses that are using the word handyman in it. So the first listing you see is need a handyman ? What about Bob? Pretty sure that the business name isn't registered like that. There's also another one that says handyman for 2 hours, $99. Chances are that that's not really their actual business name. And so those are usually the red flags and the things that I zero in on, and to make sure that, I'm, getting people, removed that don't belong there, because, chances are that handyman for 2 hours, $99 could really be impacting the business of handyman, as long as that's a legit listing. The other thing I like to do is I like to look at Street View. So there's a tool that I use that will actually highlight addresses if it suspects them as being, a PO box or a virtual office. And the vacancy, I've told them that doesn't work, and so we're just waiting for them to go and fix that. But it'll also let me know if something's a residential address. Now with Street View Aerial, I can definitely see that this is a private residence. And so this would be a prime example of, a few months ago being able to report this listing as being ineligible for, being at a private residence and having the name handyman. Chances are, I think there would probably be more with this listing. I didn't look into it too closely. So I actually have some tools if anybody's using Chrome. So my favorite tool in my tool belt is company information in Google. And so with this tool, I'm actually able to, when I'm on a listing, I can actually get the CID. So I can actually open that CID into a new tab, or I can copy that to a clipboard. But for me, I always use the CSV, because when I'm building out my spam sheets, I always need that information so that when I go and I report listings to Google, I have the business name, the CID, the address if it's showing, the telephone number, the website if they have it. So it really comes in handy when you're trying to report listings to Google. Plus the CID is what they want on the business redressal form. And I will get to the business redressal form in a few minutes. I also have this thing called the tool I was telling you about, the GMB scanner. So this is what will tell us if it's a private residence or a commercial building. So if the address turns green, chances are that it's pretty good. But just like everything, always double check all of your tools and data. This tool does have a lot of issues with it. I've seen it mark residential addresses as being commercial and commercial addresses as being residential. So just like everything, you always have to, do your homework. You just can't take any tool or AI technology at face value. You got to take it with a grain of salt. So again, like we said, looking for, businesses that are advertising their services. It doesn't match the business name. So, here you go. Here you have Littleton Handyman Services, Colorado. We know that that's not going to be completely correct. Craftjack Handyman Services, LLC. Chances are pretty good, high and likely that it would be a legitimate listing since it has that LLC. But again, it'd be one of those things we would be able to easily verify, because if you said you have an LLC, then you are going to be found in the Secretary of State. So now we're going to talk about the suggested edits, because this is, the things that we like to do. So usually when I'm doing a suggested edit, my go-tos are spam fake or offensive. I'll also mark stuff as private place or home, never existed. And sometimes with these lead gen listings that I know are completely, fictitious, I'll also hit them as well with permanently closed. So I'll do spam fake and offensive, and then I'll hit it again with permanently closed, because when you get a business listing that's marked as permanently closed, it doesn't show up in Google unless you're actually searching for that business name and that address specifically. So marking a business as permanently closed, as long as it is a fake listing, chances are you will be able to get them removed. Now, make sure you use a clean account. As I've been talking about account level suspensions, there's quite a few people I know that have gotten account level suspensions. So my buddy last week, he had 50 listings get suspended, and it was because Google didn't like some of the edits he was doing. I also know another SEO person who was trying to do spam fighting in the Dallas area. And again, he thought he was, only going after, bad players, but apparently some of the edits he made ended up backfiring. So if you're going to do spam fighting, make sure that Gmail account is never, ever, ever associated with your Google My Business listing or any listings that you manage, because you get hit with an account level suspension. Every listing that you are managing will get suspended. So I say this every time and time again, but the people that have listened to my presentations, it goes in one ear out the other. If you only listen to one thing, you take one thing away from this presentation, use a clean account, make sure that Google account is not associated with any of your listings. As an owner or as a manager or site manager, it will have major repercussions on your business or your clients. Again, I have to reiterate, this is that account level suspension. So this is, when you apply for a reinstatement, this is what happens when you have that account level suspension. And they tell you pretty clearly, you're listing as activity from a previous manager owner's account that was suspended for violating guidelines. This is really severe. And so until you actually separate yourself from that account, Google is not going to work with you. But now the new guidelines is they're telling you, sorry, we're not reinstating your listing. You're going to have to start all over from scratch. So this is why I have to reiterate it. I know I used the slide before, but this is crucial. I don't want to have anybody else come to me and say that they got an account level suspension for doing spam fighting. So what can you do if you have done suggested edits and they haven't been approved, or you just don't want to bother doing suggested edits? Then that's where I say, please use the business redressal complaint form. You can just Google that, business redressal complaint form. So this is where you put in your name, your contact email address. If you use a different or a dummy email address, as long as you're logged into Google, to Gmail or into any Google property, it'll automatically know what your email address is. So even if you try to use like a different one, they'll still know. Name of the entity, organization that are getting impacted, honestly, truly doesn't matter. I just have mine set as default, so it just goes full name, Jason Brown, my email address, it uses my company, and then I start filling out the form below. So what I do is, I can either do keyword stuffing or, so it's either be name or your address. And then that little box that says, what is the profile, public URL for the location? That's where I place that CID. So that's a really great thing. And then you can also do a bulk. So if you don't want to keep hitting if you don't want to add one and keep adding more and more and more, what you can do is choose file, and you can do a bulk upload. I say never do more than 90 listings in one bulk upload. Now, if you're going to do that, make sure that all of those businesses are the same company. So if you're looking, so that would be if you're doing a lead gen. If you just want to go and report everybody in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that you think is not playing by the rules, well, Google's chances are Google's not going to take a lot of action. If they start seeing a bunch of legitimate listings, then they're not going to move it. They're not going to move any further, and that's usually why we see the most complaints on the Google My Business community forum, is because people have uploaded too many listings, thinking that Google is just going to check everything, and they will if they see three or four listings that are legit, then they'll stop and they won't take action. We've also seen it where I've uploaded 700 fake listings that were all the same business name across the United States. And we've seen Google, come in, and willy-nilly, take out some and leave others. So the team is not as great at adhering to detail, which is why we always say, do batches of 90. When I do batches of 700, it takes me nine complaint form submissions, because I make sure I don't do more than 90. And so I just have to cut down my list to try to make it a little bit easier for Google. The nice thing is once you submit the form, Google automatically gives you that case ID. And so I always say, keep that case ID, the date that you submit it, and attach it to the listings. So that way, if you do need to go back, you can check and see, okay, well, I reported this listing on April 1st. I use this case ID. I got this case ID number. I go back 2 weeks later, it hasn't been removed. Then you can come and get help with the Google My Business community forum. And again, I will finish that towards the end of the presentation. So this is what my typical sheet looks like. So as you can see, column A is name, CID, address, phone, website, and I get this from Tom Waddington's tool. And so when I'm going through, I can just as easily just grab all of the listings, do copy to CSV, come over here, paste, and move on to the next one. I think my record, when I calculated, I think I did 470 listings in about 4.5 hours, but I was also on Twitter and DMing and talking with people. So it wasn't a complete, straight 4.5 hours, but I am pretty good at being able to just kind of move through big markets pretty freely. And I also got access to another tool. We'll actually just start scraping entire areas. So the other thing we have to deal with now, unfortunately, is competitor attacks. I don't know why. This is the biggest thing that's been happening of late. So this is actually some pest control companies in Portland that are all being attacked by one of their competitors. And as you can see, these reviews are really severe. So we're trying to work with Google to get these taken down. The one from Alan Thomas actually says that, the chemicals made their cats get sick. Another one says, look elsewhere and save yourself money and a headache. But this is one local competitor that's actually left negative reviews for 16 of his local competitors. And so right now we're trying to work with Google to get this taken care of. We're also seeing negative review attacks in LA, Orange County, where all of a sudden people are buying negative reviews to go after lawyers or go after HVAC plumbing companies. We're also seeing negative review attacks up in Calgary with landscapers. So unfortunately, this is the new thing that you have to be careful of. And so if you start getting, some out of the norm review attacks, well, things to do is start looking at other competitors in the area, see if they started getting some weird reviews where the names don't make sense, or two first names or completely misspelled names. Because remember, a lot of the times the people that are buying these and they're creating these or the people that are creating these are from overseas, and so they spell things phonetically. And so when they're spelling Karen, we know that Karen's Karen. But when they spell it, they do it phonetically. So you'll see Karren. And so that's kind of your big flag that it's not a real profile. Or sometimes you'll see that they put the $ at the end of the number, not the beginning of the number. Again, so like I said, this company, Calgary Landscapers, came in. They started noticing that they were getting a bunch of, fictitious reviews that came to the Google My Business community forum. As they started looking into it and investigating it, that's when they started noticing that their other competitors were getting it. And so it took us about 3 weeks we just got the last final review removed yesterday. So it was a month of back and forth with Google trying to get all of these fake review profiles taken down. Like I said, here's an example of a competitor attack review for personal injury lawyers in Orange County. We actually know the company that was behind this, basically just from my investigation. So we know who it is. We've reported everything to Google and just kind of letting Google, run their boat. But this is a case in point where you actually have to hire a lawyer to go and prove it, sue the company, and it's just a big old nasty headache that people really don't want to deal with, unfortunately. You also will get, negative review attacks from disgruntled people, whether it be a customer or a terminated employee. So, here's a prime example. It's a lot of, fictitious looking names. You get Lex, Fadeways, and so this is probably the same person going in and creating just a bunch of profiles just to go and ding the business. And this is another, case that we're currently working on. And this is a medical doctor down in, I think in McKinney, Texas. Or you'll just get, people that want to just go and just, start leaving reviews for similar the same businesses. So this one just came in yesterday. So as you can see, these were, spas and massages, and they all got 1-star reviews at the exact same time. This is another one of my big pain cases, trying to get Google to see the patterns of abuse. But, this stuff does happen. So you do have to, constantly monitor your listing. You have to look at the profiles. As long as the profiles aren't locked, then you can kind of see some more of the hidden patterns of what's going on. And then come to the Google My Business community forum, or just reach out to me if you have any questions. So this is the Google My Business community forum. This is where I spend a lot of my time. This is where I do the most good when I'm not, playing online and doing my normal spam fighting. But, this is where you can go if you're not getting help with general support, or you have more of a nuanced issue with your Google listing and the Google team is not, receptive. This is how we found out about the Kansas bug, where if you have a service area business and you've got your address hidden, Google for some reason had some technical issue where they started putting these businesses in the middle of Kansas. And you say, why is my listing show up in Kansas? Because it's a central point of the United States. And so if you start noticing that your calls have dropped, or your leads are dropped, or you're starting to get calls from people, in Kansas, it's Independence, Kansas, then that's because you've been impacted by the bug. So this is usually where I usually find out, how Google is broken. And so if you know me from online, I always, my Twitter handle is Jason Brown Dumpster Fire, or my name is Jason Brown Dumpster Fire, because that's Google My Business is breaking on a constant basis. And so, it's never, it's never easy. Right now, most business listings show that, in your dashboard, you're at 85%, and it shows that you don't have a profile photo or banner image. So that's just kind of how we discovered that issue, and then had to report that to Google. And then that is it. So thank you for listening. Here's my contact information. If anybody, wants to reach out to me, has any questions, comments, or concerns. And so I just say thank you for that. And I look forward to any questions that anybody may have.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of questions, Jason. So Jackie asked a question. We add ourselves to use our clients. We add ourselves as a user to our clients. Any risk of getting suspended if a client gets suspended, or getting multiple clients suspended on the account level?
Yeah, so no. So if your client gets suspended, so I work with an SEO agency where we deal with nothing but Google My Business suspensions. Just because we've been added to suspended listings because we're working on getting them, reinstated, that's not going to give us an account level suspension, because we weren't the ones that created the listings. We weren't the ones that caused the suspicious activity. We're just being added on after the fact to clean up the listings and help them apply for reinstatement. So there's nothing wrong with having a bunch of suspended listings in your account, as long as you weren't the one that was going in and making the edits, getting them all, causing them all to get suspended.
And then his follow-up question is, what are your recommendations for managing many different businesses? You just add yourself as a user?
Well, okay, so there's a couple different, yes, you can add yourself get yourself added as a user. They can add you, you can request access. I say the easiest thing to do, and it's just the most convenient, is create a location group, and then you can just send them that location group number for them to add. Because what we notice is a lot of times we hear complaints where you try to add yourself to a business, and Google comes in and doesn't send that invite, or you can't get that access. But when you do it with a location group number, then it streamlines that process. You actually don't have to sit there and click accept. It just gets added into your listing right away.
That is a really good tip. I wish I would have known that about a year ago.
I know. I learned it too, and I was like, man, all those times of being frustrated not getting the access. Oh well, you live and you learn, right?
All right. So Chris has a question. If you have a Gmail account that manages several Google My Business accounts, how do you change that?
I'm not sure how Chris would want that changed. I mean, you don't have to make any changes to your account. There's nothing you really need to do. So can Chris do it? Oh, Chris is on YouTube. Can she do a follow-up to that?
Yeah, Chris, so if you want to post your follow-up question in the chat, that'd be helpful. In the meantime, we got another one from John, and he says, any hacks to get around the 100 listing email limit, specifically for update emails?
Yes, use a third-party service. So yes, unfortunately, once you have 100 listings in GMB, you don't get the review notifications. So that's where I say, people are probably not going to like me for this one. Use Yext. At least use Yext, because once you have more than 10 locations, you get a nice price break. But you can set up review monitoring to them, or you can go with a company like GatherUp, to help streamline your review processes. But they also work with different platforms. GatherUp, you can do review solicitation. But yeah, I mean, we've been yelling at Google about that. So when you think about what Google My Business was created for, it was created with individual locations in mind. So they've only been thinking about one-offs and mom and pops. They were never ever thinking about agencies or franchises, which I think is just kind of mind-boggling. I mean, if you think about some of the big they didn't think of like how would a McDonald's need to use Google My Business, like that escapes them. So yeah, we've been complaining about that, but yeah, once you get 100 listings, yeah, you don't get the notifications that you want.
Okay, and then Chris posted her follow-up. She was asking because she may have misunderstood what you said about having a Gmail account whenever you update Google My Business accounts for clients.
Yes, right. So that's going to be separate, that account level suspension. But yeah, I mean, well, depending on what edits you are doing in GMB. So if you're updating, their telephone number or their hours or, a website, that could cause a suspension. It's not going to cause an account level suspension per se. There are some nuances. And so there was an account level suspension that I dealt with, and it was 84 locations. And it was one of the worst ones I worked on. And it took us 4 or 5 months just to get it, fixed. But yeah, people kept going in and logging in, and they just kept doing, a couple edits every day, and they were trying to add, COVID links and just because of all of the activity that was happening, and it happened to be rehab, but it wasn't the drug rehab. It was, the long-term facilities when you've been injured and you need to go in, and rehab from an injury. But because Google saw it as a sensitive category, and they were watching all these people going in and making all these edits, and just multiple people were trying to, fix data that was incorrect, they ended up causing like massive account level suspension. So they didn't get just like one account that got account level suspension. They got like 7 of them, all flagged. So that's the only thing you really truly need to worry about. But yeah, Chris, if you're just going in and doing an edit here and there, you're going to be fine. And I know you, Chris, you're not doing anything, nefarious. Now, if you're trying to be like me, Chris, and you're trying to do spam fighting for garage doors, right? Chris does garage doors. So if you're like trying to, report a bunch of garage door spam in the area and doing suggested edits and doing a bunch of names, and you just inadvertently get a couple listings that are not fake, think of it like Minesweeper, So the only difference is Google doesn't tell you when you're like 3 away from that bomb, but you hit that bomb and then it just flattens your whole entire account.
That was a really good analogy.
Thank you.
I'll have to use that. Okay, so Brian asked a question. If you flag a business or suggest an edit, it's anonymous, correct?
No, it's not. That is not anonymous at all. So I actually know a couple cases that are going on right now where, people were going in and playing fast and loose, and they were trying to change the category. They were trying to mark the business as being closed. They were trying to, update their hours and doing like nefarious edits. So what you do is you file a lawsuit against an unknown entity, a John or Jane Doe. You subpoena Google for those records, and then that user account gets this lovely email that they never want to see. It says, "Hey, your records are being subpoenaed. You now need to hire a lawyer, and you have 30 days to file a rebuttal, or we're going to turn over all of your information." And those cases can go on for months. So yeah, that's not anonymous right now. Business redressal form is anonymous, but we don't know, if there could become a point in time where, Google would have to subpoena that, when Google would allow those records to be subpoenaed to say, who reported it. So, I mean, but as long as you're above board, and knowing Brian's, above board, I think for the most part, then you shouldn't have to worry. But yeah, I mean, they could come back to find you, which is, the other thing we say is, when you do a suggested edit, Google's like, "Hey, would you like to add a photo?" No, you add that photo, it's going to automatically be associated with your account. And so then they will definitely know that Brian Regan, uploaded that photo, and then they can go and track you down and just wreak havoc for your family, which you don't want. And hi, Brian, by the way.
Okay, and then we had another question from Jackie. Maybe I'm not familiar with location group number. What is that and the process to get it?
Yeah, so all you have to do is just click on the radio boxes in GNB, and then when you click on them, you just click transfer, and then it's going to allow you to, at that point in time, to create a location group. So you can say plumbing, or you can say, consulting clients. You can name that folder whatever you want, and you can just transfer as many listings as you want into that group. And then when you click on your group settings, that's where you're going to see that account number. It's really fun and wonderful. I mean, because I've had to do it. So I would create, when I worked for franchises and they were constantly opening locations. So I created, coming soon buckets, folders for all those locations. So I knew I would always put everything that we were creating brand new that was going to go into the coming soon. So that way when we needed to go and open something, we can go right into that folder, update the information and then move it over to live.
Good tip. Well, it looks like that is the end of our questions. Jason, thank you so much again for speaking to us. As a reminder, Jason Brown, you can actually hire him. So reach out if you have problems with spam and need some help cracking down. But with that, thanks everybody and good night.
Thank you, everybody.